Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Today, after our disastrous launch of the first rover, we are going to do something different. Our aviation team proposed the new method of getting Kerbals to the moon and back in the fully reusable, fully recoverable vessel. Of course, there were major concerns of budget and how we're going to finance this thing, but then one J. Kerman interceded with a very intelligent counter argument, which sounded approximately like this.
Don't want! Now!
And the finances were suddenly there. Everything was perfect, and in a record time the experimental vessel was assembled. And today we are going to fly it on its maiden voyage. We hope that it will be able to get at least free return trajectory from the moon. And here we go on the launch pad or runway. Let's start our engines and fly into the blue yonder. And lift off, and okay, Jebediah manages to keep the craft stable, but we are losing electricity, so let's do this interesting maneuver by turning upside down. And it seems that the craft is going to be working fairly well. We're gaining altitude and vertical speed. Everything seems to be in order. So let's turn around once more and start leveling out our flight to make sure that we gain as much horizontal velocity as possible. We are currently cruising at approximately 1700 meters or 17,000 meters. 1700 would be too low. And our horizontal speed is approaching 800 meters per second. From time to time I'm going to check the fuel level in the small tanks, which contain only liquid fuel without the oxidizer, and the ones that we're going to use only for the jet engine stage. Alright, we are approaching 23,000 and our horizontal speed is 1.2 kilometers per second. Everything is fine. So let's point up a little bit and start gaining a vertical velocity so that we end up in higher reaches of the atmosphere when our engines turn to the rocket mode, which happened right now. And look, our apoapsis is 144,000 meters, so we're already above the atmosphere. Let's create our maneuver node for the circularization and deploy solar panels. And look at that, we are in the orbit. It works perfectly fine. So now we are going to try to go to the moon. We'll probably not be able to land or even orbit, but the free return trajectory should be within our reach. So here's our maneuver node, and burn is executed now. Perfectly done. The only problem is that our periapsis around the moon is a little bit too high, but that should work. So, at first, we are going to try to orbit the moon and return home from the orbit. But we are not sure about the fuel constraints. We also have some of our scientific equipment, so that we have a little bit of science gain from this mission, although it wouldn't be too much. So let's time warp a little bit, and we can do the gravity scan of the moon. And we are too far away for the temperature scan. So let's go for the orbiting maneuver. Let's create this maneuver node here. And it looks like a nice little orbit. So, create an alarm and time warp. Maneuver node is ready. Let's reorient ourselves and burn. In 3, 2, 1, ignition. Execute it perfectly. And we are in the orbit. Now, theoretically, if we're going to burn prograde from this position, we should be able to get into the low Kerbal orbit. Let's do our low orbit science first. Now let's turn around and just burn prograde and try to get our craft to land. In retrospective, we should have done one orbit around the moon and get into the beta position for the burn, and it should probably have worked. Also, we could have done a little additional burn with the RCS thrusters, and it might have done the trick and lowered our periapsis around the Kerbal sufficiently so that we can land. But we decided to do the quick load. So, we are back on the approach to the moon. The only thing we are going to do now is lower our periapsis so that we can do really low orbit science. And 15 kilometers should be sufficient. So let's execute it. Little time warp, and we are ready for the burn. And let's do our low orbit science here. Alright, we are done. And we are returning to the Kerbal. Now let's just time warp to our epapsis and burn retrograde so that we lower our periapsis around the Kerbal into the atmosphere and prepare for landing. Perfect. Another round of time warping. And we are ready for the re-enter. The only thing we have to do now is retract our solar panels, just like that, and turn our engines back to the jet engine mode. And here is the re-entry effects. And let's try to kill our velocity by doing these turning maneuvers and generally just slowing our craft down. Alright. Apparently our craft can do cartwheels without any damage to its velocity or trajectory. Alright, let's start our engines to decrease our vertical speed, or in other words, slow down our descent, and also increase our horizontal speed so that we can reach the land and not splash down, because splashdown at this point is not advisable. Perfectly done. We are almost near the land, and let's time warp a little bit to make sure it doesn't take half an hour of slow gliding with engines on and off and on again. So far, Aviation Group was completely correct, but there is one final challenge left for them, and this is will we be able to land? If Jebediah is able to land without damaging the craft, and more importantly, without damaging himself, we will prove that single stage to moon is viable, and further finances will be procured. So, let's start our landing maneuver. We are currently cruising at lower than 1 kilometer and falling down. So let's flare up our nose to make sure that our vertical speed is low. Careful. Touchdown. Engage brakes. And everything is fine. Jebediah is safe. The craft is still in one piece. And Jebediah decides to leave. So let's recover the Jebediah and the craft. Perfect. This maiden voyage of SSTM or single stage to moon craft was a major success, and further finances were allocated by the Kerbal government, which means that we shall continue this endeavor and maybe expand our single stage missions to other planets. But that will happen next time. For now, thank you all for watching. Remember to like, dislike, and comment this video in the section below. My name is Darlok, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.